This podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Legend of the Bones. Following in the footsteps of giants, Legend of the Bones is a chimera. A mix of old-school tabletop RPG and dark fantasy storytelling. As its name might suggest, in Legend of the Bones the dice rule. There'll be no rerolls, no fudging the dice, no metacurrency. The roll of the bones will determine the character's destiny, and no one will be spared their fate. None shall escape the destiny of bone. Last time on Legend of the Bones. The companions ventured into the cellars of the ruined hunting lodge, where the outlaws they were pursuing were hiding out. Having already captured one of the outlaws and killed a second, the companions made their way further into the complex, where they encountered a direwolf that was seemingly being used as a guard dog. The animal attacked, and in the narrow confines of the passageway, Beric was forced to fight the beast alone until he could retreat into a wider chamber, where Canute delivered the killing blow. Afterwards, the companions struggled to make sense of how a group of supposedly common outlaws would keep such a beast, nor why the gang had positioned its kennel where they had, requiring them to continually pass through it. Valen suggested that there may be a hidden passageway, allowing the outlaws to bypass the kennel, and sure enough, after a brief search, Valen found a secret door. The short passage beyond terminated in another door, but Beric was not able to make out any sound on the other side. Wary from their encounter with the direwolf, Valen cast the spell Clairvoyance, and was able to see through the eyes of one of the outlaws in the next chamber. From the noise of Beric's fight with the direwolf, Valen observed that the outlaws had been alerted to the presence of intruders, and in response, led by their leader Ross Gallen, the men began a strange ritual, during which their bodies transformed into a hybrid of man and wolf. Chapter 52, Part 1, Day 51, Night. Party status: Beric, 43 out of 43 hit points. Lena, 31 out of 31 hit points. Valen, 19 out of 19 hit points. Talion, 27 out of 27 hit points. Canute, 29 out of 36 hit points. Arn, 24 out of 24 hit points. Kettle, 12 out of 12 hit points. Abron, 21 out of 21 hit points. Spells available: Valen has memorized Push, Shield, Revive, and Ignite. Talion has memorized Resolve, Poetic Prose, Pitch, and Imbue. Lena can pray for 2 second-level miracles and 1 third-level miracle. The mournful howl of wolves shattered the stillness, echoing through the darkened corridors as the companions hurried back towards the way out of the cellars. Valen, fear written across his face, had yet to share the horrifying vision which had driven their retreat. But the dread radiating from him was warning enough, and the companions trusted the mage's judgment. As they reached the initial chamber, they scrambled up the stairs, each one moving with haste.
"Block the entrance!"
Valen shouted urgently, as Beric finally cleared the last step.
"Help me with that!"
the big warrior commanded, gesturing towards a decrepit bed, choked with ivy. Arn slammed the trapdoor shut with a heavy thud, while Canute rushed to assist Beric in dragging the bed over it, the old wood creaking in protest.
"It will not hold them for long,"
Valen exclaimed, his eyes wide with trepidation.
"What saw you?"
Beric demanded finally, his voice strained. It was unsettling to see Valen, who was usually so calm, appear so agitated.
"Men, Beric. Men who became half-wolves."
Ulfheðnar,
Canute blurted out.
They cannot be killed by steel alone.
the Scarne added with urgency. Just then, a loud thump reverberated from the chamber below as something smashed violently against the trapdoor. There was no time for Beric to ask how Canute knew this, but it mattered not.
Get the horses.
Beric instructed, to no one in particular.
But Morwenna!
Abron cried out desperately, but in the intensity of the moment, his plea fell on deaf ears.
Mine is the only blade that can likely harm them. I'll hold them off.
No, cousin.
Canute replied resolutely, unsheathing the sword he had recovered from the guardroom. And it was clear that none of the companions could conceive of abandoning Beric. Meanwhile, Lena began intoning a prayer, and Talion unslung his harp, as the others hastily retrieved torches from their packs, in the hope that fire would prove effective against their adversaries. Another powerful thump resonated from beneath the bed, accompanied by the sharp crack of wood splintering. As the companions braced themselves against the impending threat, the trapdoor rattled violently, the bed shifting under the pressure. Shadows flickered ominously around them, cast by the dancing flames of the torches they had hastily lit.
Be ready,
Beric urged, his knuckles white as he gripped the hilt of Callus Cledder. Suddenly, a clawed hand burst through the splintered wood of the trapdoor, followed by a guttural growl that sent chills down their spines. With a primal roar, a wolf-like figure burst up through the trapdoor, flinging the bed to one side as if it weighed nothing. The wolf thing landed on its feet in a crouch, its eyes glowing preternaturally with a feral hunger. It bared its teeth with a low growl, just as the second leapt up beside it. And somewhere from the darkness behind them, Kettle screamed. Dramatis Personae. Canute. 9 years ago. Canute looked up at the star-dusted canopy of night, with the full moon looking forlorn. The wind whispered through the nearby trees of a grove, and it was cold, so Canute wore his white bearskin, the trophy from his trial of manhood, to keep him warm. He was 16 years old. His trial of manhood was 3 years behind him, and he was afforded all the rights of an adult in his community, though he had not yet reached the full height of a man. His shoulders had not yet formed into the triangle of muscle they would eventually become, and his arms were still slender. Nevertheless, he had already stood in the shield wall alongside his father, and killed his first man. He sat beside his brother, Ranulf, on the fallen trunk of a pine. They were out late, sharing a jug of mead and talking. Ranulf was 2 years younger, but he was already as tall as Canute, and destined to become a giant of a man. He wore his long, straw-coloured hair loose, with a pair of braids by the ears. The youth had thoughtful blue eyes that belied his pensive disposition. Like Canute, about his shoulders he proudly wore the prize of his own trial of manhood, the pelt of a great wolf.
Manya looks lonely tonight,
Canute observed, referring to the goddess personification of the moon in Scarne belief.
Aye, brother, she does,
replied Ranulf, handing the mead jug to Canute, who took a large swig.
How does that old Scald song go?
The young warrior thought for a moment, and then, remembering, pronounced,
The quiet moon who guards the sky listens for her children's cry.
Ranulf knew the next pair of lines, and took over the verse.
Of moonlit glades and icy streams, they chase the wind in ancient dreams.
Good brother, I didn't expect you to remember it. Now, can I recall what comes next? Ah yes, it goes. Each howl a prayer to her above.
A call for nature, kin, and love.
Ranulf did not miss a beat. Canute chuckled and slapped his brother on the back.
Yes, very good. But how did the tune go? You have a mind like wax, Ranulf. Do you know it?
Aye, but if I try to sing, Manya will hear and think me one of her children. No, brother, it is better to let it remain a poem.
Ha!
Even at 16 years of age, Canute had a mighty laugh, and it echoed through the stillness of the night. The sound of it must have disturbed something in the woods not far away, as a rustling noise came from that direction. The tales of the Scalds ever told of the dangers which lurked in the forest under the cloak of night, and whilst unafraid, Canute knew caution was wise. He shot Ranulf a look, and the younger man nodded gravely back at him. He had heard it too. Personae warriors never went abroad unarmed, and so the brothers carried their swords on their hips. As quietly as they could, they slid the blades free from their scabbards. Canute motioned to the right with his chin, indicating that Ranulf should take the flank, while he went left. Making every effort to remain silent, the brothers crept towards the grove. It was not more than 100 yards away. As the angle of his vision changed, Canute was able to see a figure among the trees. It was humanoid and very pale, almost white in the moonlight. Naked and standing in a crouch behind a pair of similarly ghostly birch trees. Who could be out here, in the dark and in the cold? Perhaps they had interrupted a lover's tryst. No, that made no sense. It was much too cold for that sort of thing. Canute frowned. Occasionally, reavers, oath-breakers without honour, roamed these lands. Might this be one of their victims, robbed and stripped naked? There were other things said to exist outside the protection of the Scalae villages. Phantoms, changelings, and the feared Sheodugengar, the Shadow Walkers. He cursed himself for being foolish. He was a warrior, not a frightened milksop. He advanced, confident that Ranulf was approaching from the other side. The pale figure must have seen him, for it withdrew into the trees, and was gone from sight. Canute went forward with purpose, tightening his grip on the hilt of his sword, its blade gleaming like a silver shard in Marnia's light. Suddenly, there was a great cry of pain from the darkness. It was followed by the sound of breaking branches and a flurry of movement. Then, a dark shape exploded from the brush. Canute instinctively stumbled back in surprise, and almost lost his feet as the bulky black thing shot past him. It passed by so close that Canute could feel its coarse fur brush against the skin of his forearm. A wolf! A huge one too! He spun around, just as the creature bounded out of view, and for a moment, Canute thought he saw it run upright, like a man. No, he dismissed it as a trick of the light. Whoever was in the woods, be it lover or victim, they could never have stood up against such a creature. Abandoning caution, Canute raced ahead, but once inside the grove, the only person he met was his brother.
Did you see it, brother? A great wolf.
Ranulf shook his head, and Canute realised it was not just Marnia's sheen which caused his brother to look so pale.
No, brother. Not a wolf.
Canute had never seen Ranulf look so afraid.
A child of Mania.
Canute's eyes widened.
Ulfheðnar.
A wolf skin. Entering combat. Roscallan and his gang are Ulfheðnar, a type of custom werewolf, and they're going to present a real challenge for the party. Lycanthropes, as described in all editions of Dungeons & Dragons, don't quite fit with my setting, which is why I have created a custom creature. Ulfheðnar can change at will between human and animal form, or a hybrid of the two. They are 4 hit dice monsters, with an ascending armor class of 14. They get a +3 to their attack rolls, and in hybrid form, as they currently are, can attack with 2 claws dealing 1d4 points of damage each, and a bite dealing 1d6 points of damage. More crucially, they can only be permanently harmed by silver weapons, magic or fire. Hit points lost to mundane weapons will regenerate at a rate of 1d4 per round, even if the Ulfheðnar has been reduced to 0 hit points. I made an intelligence check for Canute off mic to determine whether he knows this, which he passed, thus he was able to warn the companions. In addition, any human that loses more than half their hit points from Ulfheðnar attacks must make a save versus death or contract lycanthropy, but I will go into that in more detail should it arise. Finally, as pack leader, Roscallan is a 5 hit dice monster, and in addition gets a +2 to his damage rolls. You can find a full creature profile at legendofthebones.blogspot.com. Time to roll the Ulfheðnar's hit points. Rolling 4d8. 17. Okay, so with half min out that gets bumped up to 18. Now for Roscallan. 26. That's above the half min out, so that's what it will be. Just one more thing. As the Ulfheðnar emerge, the prisoner being watched by Kettle will also begin to transform. And whilst the rest of the party are not surprised, I'm going to make a surprise roll for the young Skarne, but I'm going to increase the chance of surprise to 3 and 6. A 4. Okay, he is not surprised. Right, let's get to it. Round 1. I am going to rule that in this first round, only 2 of the Ulfheðnar have emerged from the cellars. The others will appear from round 2. Okay, initiative. The Ulfheðnar. 3. The party. 5. That was an important initiative win for the companions, as the spellcasters can act without the risk of interruption. Heeding Canute's warning, Lena prays to Solon for the 2nd level miracle of striking, which will imbue her warhammer with holy might, temporarily making it a magic weapon. With a -2 penalty for the haste of her prayer, the cleric will need to roll a 15 or less for her prayer to be answered. A 6.
Solon, giver of life, instill my hammer with thy holy fire, that I might do thy will.
The head of the warhammer in Lena's hand begins to glow orange, as if the metal was still hot from the blacksmith's forge. Valen will attempt to cast Shield. The mage needs a 17 or less for his casting roll. An 11. Valen speaks the incantation,
Gwynedd, Gwyn, Felwisco.
and a translucent barrier materialises around his body. Talion will attempt to cast Imbue on Arn's spear. The bard will need to roll a 14 or less for his casting roll. A 13, that's good enough. Having already unslung his harp, Talion's long fingers deftly play a haunting melody. The music permeates the spearhead, which itself begins to emit a melodious sound. Beric jumps into action and strikes out at the first Ulfheðnar with his enchanted sword, Callus Cleda. The warrior will need to roll a 10 or more to hit. A 15 for a total of 10 points of damage. Beric slashes the creature across the chest, blood misting in the air. The Ulfheðnar staggers back, howling in pain. Canute has drawn the sword he recovered from the guardroom, whose blade he recognised as being edged with silver. He moves to engage the second creature, also needing a 10 or more to hit. A 19 for a total of 9 points of damage. Canute's blade bites deep into the Ulfheðnar's shoulder with a spray of blood. Arn moves to support his lord, stabbing forward with his spear. The Skarne needs an 11 or more. A 16 for 7 points of damage as he thrusts the spearhead into the creature's side. Abron, meanwhile, follows Beric's instruction and begins to gather the horses outside of the hunting lodge, should the companions need to escape. Finally, away from the main combat, the prisoner being guarded by Kettle has begun to undergo the same transformation. I have already established that Kettle is not surprised, and given that the man is bound and that it will take a full round for the transformation to complete, I am going to rule that Kettle can automatically hit, and that the damage from his mundane spear will count as permanent. The young Skarne thrusts his spear into the man's stomach for 7 points of damage. The Ulfheðnar, engaged with Beric, attacks back with teeth and claws. It will need to roll a 12 or more to hit. Rolling 3 d20s. 17, 5 and a 16, for a total of 8 points of damage, as it slashes the big warrior across the leg and bites his arm. The second Ulfheðnar will attack Canute. It too will need 12s or more to hit. 7, 15 and 19, for a total of 5 points of damage, as it goes low, slashing and biting the Skarne's thigh. Suddenly, the remaining Ulfheðnar, including Rascalon, who in this form stands over 7 feet tall, spring up from below, forcing the companions to step back. Round 2. Initiative. The Ulfheðnar. 1. The party. 6. Perhaps the Ulfheðnar are surprised that so many of these humans' weapons can harm them, but either way, the companions are first to react. Valen will attempt to cast Ignite, targeting the Ulfheðnar engaged with Beric. The mage will need to roll a 17 or less for his casting roll. A 16. Valen speaks the incantation.
Elvedodan, ruin Aikgushio.
The Ulfheðnar's fur suddenly bursts into flame. The creature shrieks, and the air is filled with the acrid smell of burning flesh, as it takes 4 points of damage. Lena will pray for the miracle of Hold Person, seeking to target multiple enemies. With a -2 penalty for praying in combat, the cleric will need to roll a 15 or less. A 10. Lena calls upon the god of the wilderness, beasts and the hunt.
Hernoth, Lord of Wolves, command these obscenities to halt.
The miracle will affect 1d4 the Ulfheðnar. 4. Okay, I'm going to randomly roll the targets and their saving throws off mic. Back in a second. Okay, Rascalon was targeted, but is immune due to his hit dice level. Of the other 3, 1 more passed its save, meaning that 2 of the newly emerged creatures are paralysed. Beric makes an attack against his burning foe. A 16 is a hit for 8 points of damage. The warrior hacks down with callous clever. The enchanted blade strikes the creature on the left shoulder with such a force that it completely severs the arm. There is a fountain of blood, which showers Beric as the Ulfheðnar falls to the ground, dying momentarily from shock and blood loss. And in the chaos of battle, there is no time to notice that the creature's corpse slowly reverts to human form. Canute swings the silver-edged blade at his foe. A 16 is a hit for 6 points of damage. The Skarne's sword cuts across the creature's face, destroying one of its eyes and cleaving its snout in a spray of blood, and it too falls lifelessly to the floor. Arndt has his spear on another of the Ulfheðnar, but with a 6, the creature deftly dodges the attack. Talion, meanwhile, having heard Kettle shout, turns and runs with a flaming torch to aid the young Skarne, but he will take a round to get there. Abron is still gathering the horses in the event of needing to escape. Faced now with the transformed Ulfheðnar, and unaware of the ineffectiveness of his spear, Kettle tries to impale the creature. The Skarne will need a 13 or more to hit. A 1! That's a fumble! As Kettle thrusts his weapon forward, the Ulfheðnar grabs the shaft, twisting it out of the warrior's hand, before tossing it aside. Kettle will miss his next turn. Now for the Ulfheðnar's actions. But given 2 of their number have been killed, and another 2 have been paralysed, this will force a morale check. The Ulfheðnar will need to roll equal or less than a morale of 8 on 2d6. A 5. They are not willing to abandon the paralysed members of the pack, and will fight on. Seeking revenge for their brothers, Rascalon leads their attack, lunging at Beric. The Ulfheðnar leader needs to roll a 12 or more to hit, rolling 3d20s for 2 claws and a bite. 12, 6 and 18 for a total of 9 points of damage. Rascalon leaps forward, raking his claws across Beric's face, before biting him on the shoulder. Beric cries out before pushing the pack leader away. The Ulfheðnar, which avoided Arn's attack, sees an opportunity to strike Canute. It lashes out, needing a 12 or more. An 11, 12 and 3 for just 1 point of damage as it nicks the Skarne's elbow. The remaining Ulfheðnar in the main group will attack It's Lena. Against the cleric, the creature will need a 13 or more to hit. An 11, 12, and 3. Lena gets his shield up quickly and pushes the creature back. Finally, the newly transformed Ulfheðnar leaps towards the now unarmed Kettle. A 6, 12, and 16 for a total of 8 points of damage. The creature lunges forward, pushing Kettle to the ground before sinking its teeth into the young warrior's throat. Round 3. Initiative. The Ulfheðnar. 2. The party. 5. The companions maintain the momentum. Beric swings Callous Cledder at Roscallan. But with a 2, the pack leader easily dodges the strike. Canute attacks his adversary. A 6 means he misjudges the blow, and his blade cuts through air. Arn, fighting alongside Canute, thrusts his spear at the same foe. But with a 5, his jab comes up short. Lena swings her warhammer at the Ulfheðnar that attacked her. The cleric needs an 11 or more to hit. Nat 20! Having pushed the creature back, Lena brings her warhammer down on its head for a total of 10 points of damage. There is a sickening crunch as its eye socket is mangled under the force of the strike. Blood, eye jelly and bits of bone fly, and the creature roars in pain. Wielding one of the lit torches, Valen moves to support Lena. The mage will need a 12 or more to hit. But with a 7, he cannot hit as the creature staggers back from the intensity of Lena's assault. Talion, meanwhile, runs towards the Ulfheðnar that has Kettle pinned to the ground. The bard needs a 12 or more to hit. A 17 for 2 points of damage. Talion thrusts the flaming brand at the creature. It recoils, yelping with pain, releasing Kettle in the process. The young warrior scrambles to his feet and rushes to recover his spear. All the while, Abron is still gathering the horses. The companions do look to have the upper hand, but the fight still hangs in the balance. Now for the Ulfheðnar's actions. Roscallan launches himself again at Beric. But with a 5, 2, and a 10, Beric this time gets his shield up and pushes the pack leader back. Ha! The Ulfheðnar, engaged with Canute and Arn, will attack. It's Arn. A 16, 18, and a 6. The creature goes low and slashes the Personae across the legs with its claws. Arn cries out, taking 6 points of damage. The creature engaged with Lena and Valen will attack. It's Valen. With his shield spell in effect, the Ulfheðnar will need a 12 or more to hit. An 11, an 8, and a 12. The creature lunges forward, pushing through the magical barrier surrounding the mage, and sinks its teeth into Valen's waist for 7 points of damage. Finally, the Ulfheðnar, engaged with Talion and Kettle, will attack. Kettle. This is real danger for the young Personae, as he is down to just 4 hit points. Sensing a kill, the creature bounds forward just as Kettle stoops to pick up his spear. Nat 20! A 12 and a 19! No need to roll damage. The Ulfheðnar leaps on Kettle, pushing him once more to the ground. It locks its jaws on the warrior's throat and rips out his windpipe in a spray of blood. Kettle is dead. Things have suddenly swung in the favour of the Ulfheðnar. The companions need to rally and end this fight fast. Round 4. Initiative. The Ulfheðnar. A 2. The party. A 4. This is now a desperate fight. Only Lena, Talion and Abron are unhurt. And remember, if any of the companions lose half their hit points to the Ulfheðnar, then there is a risk that they will contract the disease. Beric presses the attack against Roscallan. But with a 4, the pack leader easily evades the strike. Canute tries to dispatch his enemy with the silver sword. An 18 is a hit for 4 points of damage, as his blade slices off one of the creature's ears. Arn supports Canute, striking forward with his spear. A 14 is a hit for 2 points of damage, as he skewers the creature in the shoulder. Having seen Valen wounded, Lena desperately tries to strike the creature that attacked her lover. but a 9 means the Ulfheðnar dodges the warhammer. Likewise, Valen thrusts his torch in the creature's direction. A 6. Valen cannot land a blow. Talion runs over to where the Ulfheðnar has slain Kettle, brandishing his torch. A 12 is a hit for 3 points of damage, as the torch sears the creature's flesh. Abron, having gathered the horses outside the hunting lodge, witnesses Kettle's death, and seeing Talion now face the Ulfheðnar alone, runs to support the bard, but it will take a round for him to get there. Rosgallan leaps forward towards Beric again, snarling with hate. But with a 4, a 7 and a 2, he cannot get past Beric's shield. Ha! The Ulfheðnar, engaged with a 2 Scarlet, will attack Canute. It bounds forward with teeth and claws. A 9, an 11 and a 7. Canute anticipates the nature of the attack and rebuffs the creature with his shield. The enemy, engaged with Lena and Phelan, will attack. It's Lena. 2 6s and a 14. Lena's attack left her open, and the creature lunges forward. Its jaws tear into the cleric's thigh, opening a vicious wound. Lena cries out in pain, as she takes 4 points of damage. The final Ulfheðnar, having been seared by Talion's torch, rounds on the bard. A 17, an 8, and an 18. It rushes forward, pushing Talion to the ground. It snaps at Talion's throat, but the bard manages to get his arm up in time. The Ulfheðnar's jaws clamp onto the arm, and Talion shrieks in agony, taking 6 points of damage. Round 5. Things are looking pretty bad for the party. There are 4 Ulfheðnar still fighting. Rosgallan is uninjured, and every member of the party bar Abron is wounded. Not only that, but Beric is just 1 wound away from potentially being infected with lycanthropy. Let's find out what happens. Initiative. The Ulfheðnar. A 3. The party. A 5. The companions, amazingly, have yet to lose the initiative. Could this be the turning point? Let's hope so. Beric is bleeding from multiple wounds, and has not been able to land a blow on Rosgallan. He desperately swings Callus Cledder. But with a 5, his wounds are clearly taking their toll, and Rosgallan easily evades the enchanted blade. Canute presses the attack against his enemy. A 15 is a hit for 9 points of damage. Canute hacks down with the silvered sword. The blade rips down the creature's chest, splitting open the flesh with a spurt of blood and raking across its ribs. It staggers back, howling in pain. The Ulfheðnar is close to death. Seeing an opportunity, Arn follows up with his spear. A 12 is a hit for 6 points of damage. Arn thrusts forward, impaling the creature in the abdomen, until the spearhead explodes from its back in a shower of blood. Arn pulls the spear free, and the creature falls lifelessly to the floor. With the Ulfheðnar's jaws still clamped on her thigh, Lena tries to strike it with her warhammer. But an 8 means she is in too much pain to effectively handle her weapon. Valen tries to get the creature away from Lena by thrusting his torch towards it. A 19 is a hit for just 1 point of damage, but it's enough for the beast to release the cleric. Talion rolls away from the Ulfheðnar that had knocked him down, and getting to his feet, shoves his torch towards it. A 2 means the creature quickly steps away. Meanwhile, Abron runs up behind the creature, flaming torch in hand. The Lost Withel man will need a 14 or more to hit. But with a 2, the Ulfheðnar hears its approach and whips around. Confronted by this terrifying creature, Abron momentarily freezes, losing the opportunity. Rosgallan, seeing Beric weakened, gives a gleeful, guttural laugh before lunging forward. A 3, a 17 and an 18. Oh no, this is bad. Regardless of the damage, if Beric survives this fight, he will need to make a save versus death or become an Ulfheðnar himself. Let's see how much damage the warrior takes. Oof! 13 points of damage. Rosgallan leaps inside Beric's defences, his jaws biting into the exposed flesh of Beric's neck. The big warrior gurgles, his eyes wide in panic, as he realises he is just moments away from having his throat ripped out. The enemy attacking Lena and Valen will target Lena. It leaps once again at the cleric. 7, 3, and 17 for 3 points of damage as its teeth scrape across Lena's forearm. The Ulfheðnar, engaged with Talion and Abron, will attack Abron. This makes sense, as it just rounded on the lost Wither man. It leaps forward, needing just an 8 or more. An 18, a 3, and an 18, for a total of 9 points of damage. The creature slashes Abron across the chest, ripping open his tunic before biting his left arm. Several of the characters are now in real peril. Round 6. Initiative. The Ulfheðnar. A 4. The party. A 5. With Roscallan locked on his throat, Beric awkwardly tries to cut him with Callous Cledder. An 18. Beric manages to slice the pack leader's side for 4 points of damage, causing Roscallan to release his jaws. Canute, seeing Beric in trouble, moves to support his cousin. An 11 is a hit for 5 points of damage. The Scarde strikes Roscallan on the arm with a splatter of blood. Arn too turns his spear on Roscallan. A 15 is a hit for 2 points of damage as he stabs the creature in the thigh. Meanwhile, Lena swings her warhammer at her foe. A 17 is a hit for 5 points of damage as the cleric's blow smashes into the creature's arm with a sickening crunch. Valen tries to make contact with his torch, but with a 5, the mage fails to make a hit. Away from the main fight, Talion attacks his enemy with his torch, but with a 5, the Ulfheðnar knocks the bard aside. Oof! At the same time, Abron thrusts his torch towards the creature. Nat 20! For a total of 8 points of damage. Abron manages to hold the flame against the creature for just enough time that its fur suddenly catches. Within a second, it is engulfed in fire. It spins around, arms flailing wildly and screeching in pain and terror before falling to the ground, and the air is filled with a stench of burning flesh. Roscallan, now faced with 3 assailants, will attack. It's Arn. He lashes out at the Scarne warrior. A 7, a 19, and a 13 for a total of 7 points of damage, slashing Arn's face and biting him on the arm. Arn is now below half his hit points. Like Beric, if he survives, he will need to pass a save versus death or contract lycanthropy. The Ulfheðnar, engaged with Lena and Valen, will attack Valen. It launches at the mage. A 15, a 9, and a 16 for a total of 7 points of damage as it bites deep into Valen's shoulder. The mage cries out as blood pumps from the wound. Lena shrieks in distress. Valen! The mage is down to just 3 hit points. Like Beric and Arn, if he survives, he still may have contracted lycanthropy. The companions are in serious trouble as we enter Round 7. Initiative. The Ulfheðnar. A 3. The party. A 4. Beric swings Callous Cledder at Roscallan. A 10 is a hit for 11 points of damage as the blade slashes the pack leader across the chest in a mist of blood. Roscallan reels back, howling in pain from the grievous wound. Roscallan has just 4 hit points remaining. Can Canute finish the job? The Scarne goes in for the kill. But with a 5, Roscallan pushes the warrior aside. On goes in with his spear. But a 9 means he is knocked off balance when Canute is pushed into him by Roscallan. With Valen near death, Lena desperately tries to land a killing blow on her enemy. But with a 10, the creature releases Valen and dodges to the side. Despite his wounds, Valen cannot fall back and leave the woman he loves to fight alone. He thrusts his torch at the Ulfheðnar. But a 5 means he is nowhere near the beast. Roscallan can see his death, but is determined to take at least one of these humans with him. He will target Canute. He springs forward in attack. A 12, an 11, and a 12 for 9 points of damage. Slashing with his claw, Roscallan leaps on the Scarne and locks his jaws onto Canute's shoulder. The other Ulfheðnar will target Lena. In some respects, that's a relief it's not Valen. the creature launches in a furious assault. A 17, a 2 and a 16 for 8 points of damage as Lena is slashed, bitten on her arms and legs. Both Lena and Canute are 1 hit point away from potentially catching the disease. Round 8. Can the companions now finish this fight? Initiative, the Ulfheðnar. A 1, the party. A 2. Beric musters all of his strength, swinging Callus Cledder with a backhanded strike. A 12 is a hit for 7 points of damage. The enchanted blade connects with Roscala's neck, slicing through muscle, sinew and bone, and cleaving the wolfskin's head from its shoulders. There is a fountain of blood, and the headless body falls. Lena pushes her enemy away before swinging her warhammer. A 17 is a hit for 4 points of damage. Lena brings the warhammer down in an overhead strike. There is a wet crunch as the blow caves in the creature's skull, killing it instantly. The battle is over, but the companion's fate still hangs in the balance. Thank you for listening to Legend of the Bones. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like what you've heard, then please consider rating and reviewing the show in your podcatcher of choice. Not only do I love seeing the feedback, but it really does help the show reach new listeners. As always, where would I be without my amazing cast of voice talent? And some of my guests in this episode deserve extra credit. Returning in the role of Ranulf is Kevin Conyers. Kevin keeps a blog with all kinds of OSR goodness at floodedrealms.com. Returning not so much in a speaking role, but providing combat noises for Arn, is Brian C. Rideout. Brian is a game designer, podcaster and producer, whose shows Transreal News and Swords Against Madness are 2 of my favourites. Also returning to the show, in a variety of ways, is Jim Hurst. Jim returned in this episode as Abron, and also provided some of the noises made by the Ulfheðnar. I also need to give Jim a shout out in this episode for composing the music to Talian's spell Imbue, which absolutely brought it to life. And finally, returning once again in the role of Canute, is Jon Cohen, creator of Tale of the Manticore. Again, Jon deserves extra credit for writing the Dramatis section for Canute in this episode, which perfectly set the scene for the combat which followed. My sincere thanks to all of you for your continued and steadfast support. I am, as always, incredibly grateful. I'll put these wonderful folks' links in the show notes. You can also help by liking or reposting new episode announcements, or by recommending the show online or to a friend. You really can't beat the power of word of mouth. Alternatively, if you would like to show your appreciation by buying me a metaphorical cup of tea, then I have a Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/Legend of the Bones. Any donations will go towards the show's running costs. If you're interested, I have a range of merchandise which can be found at www.redbubble.com/people/legendbones/shop. To keep the cost down to you, all items are presented at 0 markup. I make no money from them. It's purely to give something back to fans of the show. I'd also love to know what you think of the show, and I do respond to every message I receive. So with that in mind, you can contact me on X at LegendBones, Blue Sky at LegendBones, Mastodon at LegendBones@ttrpg-hangout.social, Instagram at LegendOfTheBones, email at legendofthebones@gmail.com, or go to legendofthebones.blogspot.com for show notes, house rules, character profiles, art, maps and more. Join me next time to find out what awaits our adventurers as the bones decide their fate. None shall escape the destiny of Bone.